All right, so we're going to get started here, and we are continuing the tales of Henri in Crimson Cutlass, and this will be Adventure 3. Adventure 1, we traveled to Paris, and we stole a Fabergé egg. In Adventure 2, we actually were shanghaied and taken to Bern, and there we just absconded with the ship we were given and didn't perform any of our tasks, made an enemy, but he probably doesn't even know or remember who I am. And in this mission, and you can watch the video of the more detailed explanation of what's going to happen, we're going to have recover a missing person. We're actually looking for the daughter of someone who I suspect is my father, although he's not made any claim on me. And the person I'm looking for could be perhaps my sister, but also quite titillating. It could be my sister and my former lover, Lady Jade, Josephine. So where are we going to go from here? Well, we're going to obviously go down the King's Highway. No. Let's go over to the old world map here and get a little explanation of where we are and where we'll be heading. So the mission is going to take us into this Montpellier area. And if I look over on my character sheet here, I need sea engagements, individual fighting, and conflict of arms. And hopefully I can pick up all three of those. And I have a ship. I have the Belle. That is actually a ship that was owned by a Russian who was a previous rival, but something has gotten him coerced into providing this. It could be the power of my patron. It could be the fact that there's other important figures involved. And I'm going to board a ship in Marseille, and I'm going to sail up to Nantes, and from there I'm going to take down these this gray, or also the river border crossings, and I'm going to take that ship over to Saxony, which is probably either that or Montpellier will be the climax of this venture. The Belle, a fine name for a swift caravel. Yet where was she? Not tied to a port landing. My friend Jules pointed to a vessel out a ways that had yet to let to harbor. I waved them approach, and the dock lines were tossed. Cargo was brought aboard as I watched each man work. I could have helped, but there was much to learn by observing the effort. I reviewed the log, and the ship seemed to have a series of foreign captains. I did not know the translation of all but a few words. Those I could sound out from the lettering reminded me of Ethan Ivan, the Russian. That was somewhat strange. Dutch captains or ones from my native France was more to be expected. Beggars can't be choosers. I was charged with a task, hardly one seeking charity. I sighed, taking a deep inhale of sea breeze. I would step off and recruit a pair of Frenchies to fill out my crew, men who had served with me before. In a pinch, 3 could probably sail the caravel. For a small, fast vessel, it had just the right amount of cannon for me to know it was armed for mischief. Now, would I be the first to chain one of those rogues across a cannon, or would that occur to me? And how do we start in Cutlass? Well, we start with encounters, so I am going to let Henri move away for a second here. And I'm going to use my ship here in the sea lanes, because I need 3 things. I need my ship engagements, mutiny actions at seas, my individual fighting in the duels, my conflict of arms. Once I check off all 3 of those ignobles, I will be going up a level. I have 4 swaggering techniques. Those are combat skills. And I have a total of, it looks like a dozen almost of skills. And I am not a level 2, I am a level 1 character, but my social rank is level 2. That is almost insignificant in this campaign. We are fighting a campaign. We're going to take the medieval Church of France all the way to one of these 5 reformed states. And do I need a vessel and company? Well, I had that one that I created in the last mission. I'm just going to go ahead and maybe improve this by 1 or 2 clicks. So the Belle itself. And do I have this gentleman aboard? No, I probably don't have Lucas Beyond with me, but I'll have somebody equivalent, and I'll just call him a chronicler. That's an observer, an outside observer. That could be Adam Ivan. It could be just somebody I have not determined who he is as an NPC. These guys will be battle ready, because it said in the mission build-up that I probably will have an advantage here. But they are pirate. The men are probably not as impressed. They are going along because they were told to go along, but most of them are disloyal. So let's put them both as unruly and corrupt, but they probably aren't feeling cheated. They just don't fear me. Split polish? No. But we're not starving anymore. So we're mostly now a modest, middle-of-the-road type ship. I checked the stowing of provisions and ordnance, nodding my approval. The first mate was a shirtless Russian who seemed to speak every language, barking orders to hands who happened by. He was covered in tattoos, symbols from lands I could only imagine. His life was there in ink for anyone to see. "Ushnik, you know your business." He muttered to himself and accepted the compliment. "Kindly said, Captain." I showed him my ink, a star from my brief stint as a prisoner in the Sea of Brussels. He had a similar mark, though I guessed he was of the Brevoort, not someone who lived a terrifying short stay there as a teen. The cargo was about 10 times what we needed. Many of the barrels were marked with a compass and square. That business could remain Ushnik's. I had my own mission. So long as the Belle got me to Saxony, the ship could have an ulterior motive. I thought occurred, was the Belle part of Adam Ivan's fleet? He could be even Das Kappas, that cabal of wool traders. Both conclusions logically fit. Flipping my first card of encounters, let's bring in our deck. And our old world map. And here we go with the game. Now the first encounter usually is, the previous card counts as an Ace of Cups. And we flipped ourselves a Queen of Swords. Now, Queen of Swords is going to be a very good card, except for the fact that our finances are that if my patron, the Baron Leo, provides any sort of assistance to the quest, which this Queen would indicate that he has, then my homeland of France is now becoming aware of the situation. So we're going to get some benefit here. Now, probably either Leo will come and warn me or he'll send an agent. And what he'll tell me is that when the vessel itself, he knows that I'm going to need a few people that are obedient to me. Baron Leo came to see me off. He did not come alone. At first I thought he brought an entourage, a musketeer bodyguard for his own travel. Instead, the 20 or so men marched aboard, each one saluting me. Ushnik seemed displeased. He huddled with the sailors and kept his followers separate from those Marines. Talk was replaced by whispers. Leo explained, "There is interest in court in my missing daughter. A pretense to meddle, I'm afraid. Rivalries are escalating. The mayor of Paris, an ambitious lowborn, heads a commission on delinquency, another pretense to scheme. Be careful, I feel your movements are monitored." He showed no familiarity this time. He knew that might undermine my authority. Instead, I tipped a cap as he left, and left any affection unsaid. Flambeau. If he's a proxy for the powers that rule France, I may learn to hate them all. So we're going to have a mixed crew. So instead of having 3/4 of the men disobedient and disloyal, about 50-50. So of the contingency of Marines aboard, probably 25 are loyal to Adam Adam, and another 25 are loyal to me. Should I make a note of that? Well, I don't really like to get into the bean counting of all this. I like to handle it more loosey-goosey. So that first Queen encounter, it has come and gone. We tend to do things pretty quickly in Cutlass. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, this is a system in the game where you can flip cards to generate all of the action, and all I'm doing is adding some narration, some story to it. And the next card I flipped was a 9 of Rods. Is it in phase? No, it is not in phase. I'm in phase A, so it's on Ace 2 or 3. And is the previous card a King, Queen, Knight, Knave, or 10? It is. So this is going to be a personal event. It is a personal event on the water. And that personal event is going to mean that I have a ship, which is a rod. A ship which is a rod and also inverted. I have been invited to a test of my worthiness by a secret society. Now that makes a lot of sense in this game because the Das Kappas, a wool cartel, has been testing me. Now, will I want to have more knowledge of this wool cartel? I've found out that people are smuggling wool all over the old world in barrels marked with Freemason symbols. So yes, I will definitely take an action here. And it says, roll tasking for a pirate hunch. Let me roll tasking for a pirate hunch. Tasking at my level is going to be a 14, a very hard roll. I could use my make roll here. I do have one make roll now, but that would be pretty much a waste. A waste. It would be infrugal. It would be unwise for me to waste that make roll when I want to use it to maybe prevent or wound or prevent myself from dying. But 2 dice. Did I get a 14? I'm looking. No, it's a 6. And so that 6 is going to mean that I did not. There's a slight delay between the computer. I use 2 computers when I make this. The computer I use is my referee machine, which has the most detail and more control of it. I can keep my focus on it. And then I have another machine that's recording the Skype audio, which is actually better audio. And it's going to have more of an impression. It also has the card flip, since I don't want to record my whole desktop here. I want to, what is all that blather? I'll delete all that out. We do much in post here, as you can hear from the gunshots. I don't have the ability to go pa-choo and make a gunshot. So, but here I go with that failed roll of 6. The Belle had been out to sea a few days, and all the operations ran smoothly. Still, tensions remained. Sailors often hate soldiers. Soldiers, by precedence, claim the forecastle, and the impressed hands nest in bunks hung across the gun carriages. I all but ordered Ushnik to let my Marines usurp the hammocks. He offered to mix and match, but I felt that unwise. He knew I was centralizing his faction and locking his loyalists in between work shifts. I wrongly assumed that all the initial crew were his lads. There could be myriad orders and third-party schemes. If I had offered all a chance to more freely socialize, I might have seen my mistaken assumption. There were even some men just earning a living. The problem with conspiracy is that it tends to preempt all reason. Focus the mind to speciality, the wool of Das Kappas became a distraction. At least the need for discipline was scant. I remained hopeful that Ushnik's own objective and mine need not interfere. We were 2 ships passing in the night, except we weren't. We were sharing the wooden jail surrounded by inhospitable desert of aquamarine saltwater. My cabin was quite comfortable, almost kingly as a quarter. I would nod to Ushnik. He would do the same whenever we crossed paths. A fresh barrel of water bore the mark of the Masons. I avoided drinking from it, settling instead to overindulge with dark red Carpathian wine. Salute to the harbor master. I did not make a roll of 6. I needed a 14, a very impossible roll. But that means I have no hunch. It doesn't mean that the event did not take place. I still have this event, this personal event, where I've been invited to test my worthiness. And I said, I'll test my worthiness with Das Kappas. Now, I read a little further on my personal event. A lot of the stuff I generate just with computer code. And off screen, of course. And it says, tasking for pirate hunch, the event may have lasting consequences. Care to change my mind? It will not change my mind. If this is the moment where I will die, my character, it will be the moment I will die. Only for yes, and yes, only for yes. You are accused of a capital offense. You will be hunted. This charge lasts until you leave the setting. Check in Ignoble for more detail. What happened here? Well, I probably was duped into thinking that I was dealing with Das Kappas, but I was actually dealing with minions of the Lord High Mayor Flambeau. And so he has sent some men to come after me now, and I have a warrant now for my arrest. It will last for the rest of this phase. But for that, can I get individual fighting duels? Can I get conflict of arms? Can I ship engagement? Yes, I can get individual fighting and duels by taking that guy who's going to issue me a writ and dueling him and throwing him off of my boat. I ordered one dogged man to get back to his duties. I knew the roster well enough. This man was free of assigned tasks, just having ended his shift in the sails. His hair was shorn oddly, a bowl cut hard to forget. A lousy grumbler. He was sniveling and pointing at me to halt for a complaint. He shook a paper, a scribbled set of demands from the crew, I suspected. I extended my stride to twice his step length as he piddled double time after me. Go to rest and leave me to do the same. I was anxious and disagreeable, waiting for something I saw as inevitable, but perhaps paranoia. A divided house cannot stand. The man followed me right into my cabin at sunset, a parade of untaxed cargo and division of shares. I exhaled. Sans moi affaire. I have no time for Kappas. We have no quarrel. I tried to push him out and slam the door behind, end this conversation. Grievances should first go through the first mate Ushnik. That can end it as it would. By order of the mayor of Paris, I accuse you of high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, which one is it? If this gent was from a pirate society, I would expect a black spot, a time for my death. Instead, he held his parchment, pointing and explaining his authority and calling for all to seize me as a fell one. I snatched the article and hurled it out the open gallery window of my cabin. The sea has more time to read. This dolt would soon be tossed headfirst to retrieve his soggy writ of power. Who was he again? What's nice about the concept of Cutlass is that each player group has a mission, but the world is dynamic. This roundhead guy is just someone who has his own puritanical adventure to stop me. Each NPC has his own patron, his this time being Flambeau, and he's making a rival of perhaps Lord Leo. He and I are just two passing pawns on the chessboard until either this Chumbly or I grow into power. So let's see if I can do that. I'm going to go right into the game of the mechanics of combat, and I'm going to flip a card for Brash. Why do I keep picking Brash? Well, Brash tends to have a little bit easier rolls, and some of them are not as lasting. So I go into the combat encounters, I flip a card for Brash. I got a 5. I ignore the suit since I picked the actual method that I'm using. Sometimes the deck will say that you cannot pick your method and the card suit will decide. Brash, a 5 of swords, a 5 brash. It's not inverted, so it's not a bane. After locking a blow, thrust outward with your sword hilt into the victim's jaw. Dispatch on a 10, hilt punch. 2 dice for a 10 to knock this guy out. And I rolled an 8. I did not make it. There is no Fury Pip in this game. I sought to silence this agent of the crown, doing so quickly and with less bloodshed on the carpeting. He was quick and reacted with skill. You now have my attention. And here comes the next card flip. I will continue to do Brash. This time it's a Bane. It's a night card. Separated, wrestled down, and presumed captured. Fidget your way out of a hastily knotted cords which hold you fast. Fail and fall with a vicious wound. Continue with digressions. It is a 5, and it is advantage sailor. Now you can see I am a sailor, so I will roll 3 dice with the advantage, trying to get a 5. My opponent had one wrist held behind my back, and he looped a cord about the other. We were performing the handcuff jig. He was obviously a constable trained to subdue. My heavy exhale smelt of drunkenness, his of sobriety. Just another weekend for each of us. He wanted to take me alive, my advantage. I was prepared to slay. I was the only one who would ever order a boat of mine to make sure. I wiggled free of his restraints, easily. In his off-balance state, he was vulnerable. I'd have his throat open. I reached for my dagger, mined the slashing action. Yet my hand was empty, as was my sheath. Had I not replaced my copper knife? Oh well, drink less and be in the moment more. I taunted him to bring some leg irons next time, tossing back his wrist strings and issuing an extended tongue. In the moment, we were both armed, blade to blade, his thin rapier and mine a broad cutlass. Overhead slashes would be tight. His lunging tool had the advantage. You know, my character should really learn to fence. And I easily did it. Next card flip coming at me, still a Brash, a force card. The major terror are always modifiers if you play with a group, it'll be modifier for the individual in individual combat. It'll be modifiers for the entire group in larger combat like conflict of arms or ship to ship. But that force card will tell me that berserk with anger until the deck reshuffled, I will treat grapples and knockout results as actual deaths to the enemy. Isn't inverted is not. So now I'm angry. I'm angry that this guy tried to knock me over and arrest me on the spot. I need to get a card here that I can make. And I got myself a 10. That's going to be another Bane, a 10 Bane. And I have locked swords with my victim. Oh, that's a calculated. Let's read the right one. and it is a 10 Bane. A 10 Bane tells me seizing upon whatever is handy, tools and carpentry supplies. Use what you can grab to block the blows of an adversary. Fail, and once again, vicious wound. Your wounds are either on or off in Cutlass. 2 wounds. If you're wounded to take a second wound, you will be killed, your character. And a death, a 10, death, I don't want to say death. A tradesman, I am not a tradesman, but the roll is only a mere 5. A mere 5. Got a 7. A furious exchange left my sword sunk into the ceiling beam. I placed myself on the other side of the cabin's charting table. The Riddasayer attacked across, but did so with both hands extended. At least he was no fencer neither. The action might have skewered me, except it didn't. Reality slowed. Taking up the table's inkwell, I smashed down with the pottery. If he writes with the devil's left hand, he'll never again hold a pen. He recoiled, holding his injury. When you're ready, I gestured. A smile followed from each of us. This was fun, and a good way to stave off my prior ennui. Still in combat, wrestling back and forth. Should I call the men to come to my aid yet? No, I think I'm having a little fun here. We might as well continue it. Temperance card until deck reshuffles. Treat kings, queens, knights, and knaves. Ignore them. If drawn, choose otherwise. Well, that's okay. It's some of those cards are good, some of those cards are bad. And we're going to get a 2. A 2, and it is not a Bane. A 2, brash. Here comes my 2 brash. Could be for the win, we hope. As the victim lunges, you sidestep and grab hold of his wrist. One opponent will be knocked out, but I'm treating knocked out as knife to the throat. It's a 12 to pick up C's sword arm. I do not have C's sword arm as a swaggering. Let's see if I can roll that 12. A 10, I missed it. I took hold of his good wrist, whipped his arm with a snap of ligaments. Once again, I instinctively reached for the empty sheath where my copper knife should reside. No finishing move. I was leaving him bruised, bloodied, but unbowed. He snarled when I suggested we split a carafe and parlay. The zealots will be the death of us all. Combat continues. A king. Now I'm ignoring kings when they come along. And an 8, but it is a Bane. Lock an enemy arm behind your back, trying to get a bit more information on what you are facing. Can you see through these lies? Fair roll, a character's morale is broken, and I will submit to digressions. Why would I do this? No, his method will select defensive unless he is forced to take a regular. Am I an Inquisitionist? I am not. A 6 on 2 dice to make this roll. Double 1s. I'm forced to go defensive. I still felt strong. My opponent was badly beat. He may have been someone's enforcer, but he had yet to cross swords with a gentleman skilled as I. I wrung his arm behind his back and questioned, what is this really? No process server would fight to the death. What does Das Kappas want with me? Who is the true villain? Tell me this ship's true owner, spawn of hell. He reacted, grunting his piety as if, after all I had inflicted, a few insults could truly seem grave. He would meet his maker clean of conscience. I was the villain. He was the law, ever defiant. Release me, son and grandson of wharf whores. I am noble blood. You owe fealty to your nation's masters. I snorted at such humor, but the remark made me wonder what indoctrination the lords and ladies must receive. The candor of his vulgar arrogance, he valued a man's worth far differently than I. I had heard of tribes that boil men alive, flay their skins. We Frenchmen no longer did such things, yet maybe, we should return to primitive acts for superior recreants. Still, I felt shaken by his contempt. I too was taught the social order. I had yet to hear of any social contract proposed by Rousseau. Do all nobles hate the common folk, see us as refuse of foul loins? Does even Leo? I certainly shared such asinine superior views of a birthright. Comes my card, defensive now. It is a 7, but it is a Bane. A 7, Bane, defensive. A foe appears to be wounded and falls from your shot. Well, that's my palm pistol in action again. Realize your angle or impact force was not ideal. Fail and surprise. Player must select a regular. Am I a crossbowman? I certainly am not a crossbowman. Let me roll a 6 on 2 dice. A 10, easily made it. The social classes seem evened by firearms, and I had enough chit-chat. I shot him at close range, yet I knew it hit his shoulder and missed his heart. That is, assuming any lord has one. Rather than check his pulse, I reloaded with caution. Still taking defensive. If this goes on for a little bit, I'll change some of the aspects of play. But a king bane, but we're ignoring kings. A 5 straight up defensive. Sometimes with a defensive action, you can actually defeat the opponent. Most of the time, you're just trying to get away. In this case, 5 defensive, body block a charging opponent, then strike with my dagger. Success and dispatch one opponent. Fail and your next card event is treated as a bane, as inverted. But it's a 10 on 2 dice. Am I stout as a trait? I am not. 2 dice for a 10, and I rolled an 11. And I just defeated this process server, this agent of Flambeau. As I suspected, Bullcut was feigning collapse. When I did not take the bait and approach him, he reacted instead to the sound of my ramrod at work in the barrel. A furious scream ensued. Now we are the animals we all are. Less man and more beast. We would finish this. He charged a short distance across the cabin, a decorative knife in his remaining good hand. I lowered my frame and flipped him over the back of my body. He landed with a thud and dropped his weapon. Nice knife, even copper. Might have been a reward to a sailor for a lifelong service. Instead, it probably was exchanged in pawn or taken for unpaid rents. My prize now, after I cleaned the blue blood off the blade. That is an amazing ignoble of individual fighting and duels. I need ship engagements, and I need conflict of arms before I go up to level 2. Level 2 will get me more skills, and level 2 will also get me more make rolls. We had that little combat resolution with the last guy we fought and the process server. And I still got to get out of the phase. I got this death warrant facing me for the rest of the phase here, and I'm going to flip another card. And King, Queen's Knight, it would be nice to get an ace to move past phase B as well. And here we go, a 4. Now a 4 is in phase? No, it's not an ace 2 or 3. It's a 5-4. It's going to be encounter number 1 and a cup rod. So if I go over to sea lanes here, and I get myself a cup rod encounter number 1. It's a mundane special vessel. It's probably a fishing boat that went by. Hey, I could wave to Lucas Bean, maybe. Is there anything that I could generate here? Well, I can, and I probably should, because I do need ship voyages actions at sea. So this mundane vessel comes by, and I know that Adam Adam's men, I can see from my actual vessel that my guys are pirates. Let's attack it. Why not? I assembled the crew and company. The various men stood on distinct opposite sides with me in the middle. Pikes and muskets to my left, cutlass and pins to my right. All the lads were glaring back and forth at me and at each other. An expected reckoning was at hand. Do you see the problem here? Some lowered their homicidal faces in shameful agreement. Others stood defiant, licking lips. You there and you there, me in the middle. Forget this shilly-shally for now. I pointed outward across them, to the sea. That ship offends us. You had to squint to even see it in the distance. Us, I say, not simply me, as I am easily offended. That ship offends each of us. We may not have met the people aboard. We have barely met each other, but today we have a prize to take and share. We have a goal that we shall meet as the crew of the Belle, each and all united. In 2 hours, we will overtake her. In 3, her cargo will be inside our hold with shares equally divided. Ushnik and Henri will receive 1 count, same as any soldier, same as any deckhand, same as Lulu, the cabin boy. The lad sat tending the kitchen stove under the overhang. Sound general quarters. Hoist a fucking flag that matches my mood and ours. One of Ushnik's followers pulled a Jolly Rogers right out of his breast coat. I pointed him out and grinned. And so we're going to take on this ordinary vessel, this cog. We're going to take this fishing boat. We're going to, capture it, and we're either going to scuttle it, or we're going to take its cargo, or we're going to sell it in port. We could take some of the crewmen off, some of the skilled sailors off, and bring them onto our boat. And so we're going to do a ship-to-ship battle. Now, ship-to-ship battles are divided into 3 phases. The first phase would be whether or not I can board the enemy ship, crossing ships. Then I need to traverse their main deck, and then I need to attack the commander, engage the commander. Before I do that, we would exchange artillery fire back and forth. But that aspect is actually optional. In this case, since this is probably an unarmed, mundane merchant ship that we're going to attack, we do not need to actually go into ship-to-ship firing barrages at one another. I certainly don't want to sink it, and it probably doesn't have any capability of sinking me with the light guns that it would have. So I'm going to just go right into skip barrage cards. And is there a chance I'm going to overtake it? Well, it's probably got a speed factor of 0 or less, and my speed factor is probably pretty high in this smaller pirating ship, so it's automatic, but I'll make it a roll of 4 just to keep things interesting. 2 dice for a 4 to capture and get close enough to this enemy ship. Now, normally these sort of battles would take hours. You could pursue a ship at sea for days before you would either slowly catch up on it, or you would lose it in whatever weather or changes in the wind. But I've caught up with it, and now we're going to decide whether or not we're going to sail, command, or outlandish to cross. Now, do we have an advantage in the number of boarding sailors we have? But all that would be considered in the aftermath. Remember, I have about 25 and 25 ratio of the guys that we're fighting. If you're into the bean counting, but I'm not. And so here we go. There's going to be no defensive modifier on this. Do I wish to assail to cross decks, command, or outlandish? I will decide to do an assail card. No defensive modifier. Here comes my assail card, and I got myself a 4. A 4 assail. Let's read that out. It is cross ships, and it is assail. A 4. There are no banes in you notice that card is upside down. There are no banes in the ship-to-ship action. The banes are actually mixed in with the other encounters of the grander actions. And the 4 is step to the opposing channel, then dive forward between adversaries to success, and the condition becomes traverse deck. At difficulty 13, advantage dashing. Let me take a look at my character here again. And yes, my character is dashing. I'm rolling 3 dice, looking for a 13. 3 dice, 13 advantage dice. That is a big roll. 16. 16 means I have successfully completed that assail.
A staunch line of enemy sailors with belaying pins set about to dissuade. One stone-faced man even held a shield, so quaint. I could not sight a proper deck leader. Maybe the master cowers below. I stood on Belle's rail as our 2 boats slowly winched together. Our grapnels were secure with nary a shot. I had hoped for a quiet looting, maybe a few fists swung. I readied to step aboard a captured prize. I even waved that all was well. Ships in these waters must expect to lose cargo once every 3rd crossing. Could be worse. Storms tend to flounder 1 in 13. The cog's crew was not going to surrender. Right before we cracked hulls, I stepped across and muscled my way through the men. I became first aboard the ship that I would have as my own. As agreed, just 1 share. After me came a swell of men, Marines and hands. The crew of the Belle was uniting. If the opponents resisted too long, all of them would be shot, stabbed, or in the aftermath hung.
And now I'm at traverse deck. Now, do I want to sail traverse deck? No, I'm going to do something outlandish now. Now, why would I do that? Change things up, but also I know that the tables maybe favor me a little bit better with outlandish. So here comes my outlandish card on traverse the decks. And I got myself a 3. Again, the Bane, you don't worry about the Bane. You can add at higher levels some sort of negative modifier, give a def mod increase for that Bane being flipped. But here, with the fact that I'm a low-level character, a 3, traverse deck, outlandish.
A 3 says retreat with men to the forecastle and conduct musketry, trying to drive the opposition behind cover. Optional, success and condition becomes engaged commander. That's good. That means I could capture the ship and win. But fail and lose time, which would increase the round of battle. Now the round of battle I've determined either is going to be a positive modifier or a negative modifier for me that I'm dealing with. If the character has a skilled at men-at-arm, difficulty decreases by 2. I am a skilled men-at-arm, but I am not lordly. I would need a 10 on 2 dice. If he's a gunner, decreased by another 2. I am a gunner, so now it's only an 8. An 8 on 2 dice. I will try to roll that 8 on 2 dice. A 6, I missed it. And if I fail, the round will increase, which means I'm going to take a -1 penalty now for the moment. My boots were wet. Blood was being spilt. Needlessly, who can say? The enemy captain should have struck colors, surrendered by now. Obstinate. Or absent. No way to know. I would see him garroted if he still lived. I was not a novice at hard hand play, yet these swabs had to be protecting something highly prized, and yet their numbers thinned rapidly. We needed further advantage, even if we had yet to see true casualties. We had the enemy forecastle, and from there we could sight down on the action. If I could get a dozen musketeers up here, the enemy might be called to surrender, that or face selective sharpshooting one by one. I tried to pull men out of the general melee and told each the plan. Most were in a frenzy, pushing. My men against the enemy line were being cramped, hardly able to swing. The ones behind pushed too eagerly. So much pent-up energy, rage. If I had more money, I should have just funded some shore leave. We could celebrate later. I needed to wrest my Marines loose without making Ushnik sailors feel betrayed, left to handle the sour brunt. That's bad. These tables are hard enough. Take an outlandish card again. Trying to traverse the decks. The world card. Let's see what the world card says. How about if I go to ship battles here? World, a fluke explosion or mishap on the boarded vessel. Player, when repulsing. Next minor card is treated as barrage damage. Inverted, the fluke also injures the selecting player. I am knocked down with a vicious wound. Oh, that is called a take blow. Wow. So the ship was probably a trap. Another trap, a fire ship that just suddenly burst into flames and blew up. Wow. Well, on the positive note, we'll take our ship engagements and mutinies and actions at sea. And we're 1 check away. But on the negative action, I was down with a vicious wound. That smell, sulfur, a fuse, out of place on this fishing vessel. There was no gun deck, no repulsing cannon I could see. Did they have one on a wheelbarrow? Could have been a grenade, but that too would seem out of place, even reckless. Then my face must have sunk. The realization. I caught a glimpse of Ushnik, same expression. He seemed almost to know. The last of the opposing crew dove overboard. I thought I sighted the jolly boat below collecting the swimmers. To where? Anywhere as the explosion detonated. Now I could be captured here. We'll have to see. More later.